Hi, Michael Herrick here with HIPAA for Humans, realistic cybersecurity advice for healthcare. In a recent video, I talked about a report from the Department of Health and Human Services in which they found that 86% of healthcare organizations still lack an effective, up-to-date, enterprise-wide risk assessment and risk management plan to protect patient data at their organization. If you're watching this video, there's an 86% chance that you are not ready with your risk assessment documentation if the Office of Civil Rights ever comes knocking. And we've also been seeing some enforcement activity. Just last month, in May of 2021, we saw some enforcement activity against a clinical laboratory. And the first finding in that letter from the Office of Civil Rights was no risk assessment. It's the lack of a risk assessment that ratchets up those fines. The lack of a risk assessment can turn a $10,000 fine into a $100,000 fine. We've also seen enforcement activity where people hand in what they think is a risk assessment, and HHS says, that's not a risk assessment. This isn't relevant documentation, and it's not meeting the standards. So we want to, like I said, if you're watching this video, there's an 86% chance that you're in this boat, and we want to help. We want to help you understand what it is that you need to do to build an effective risk assessment that actually meets the standards, and more than just meeting the compliance standards, how do you make a risk assessment that is actually going to deliver value for your organization and help drive improvement and good, effective business changes at your organization. We have a free webinar coming up later this month. Look for a link here in the post and sign up for that free webinar, How to Conduct an Effective Risk Assessment. And we're going to get into some real details. I'm going to share with you our secrets, how we conduct a risk assessment, how we get started. I'm going to share with you some common mistakes, ways that people get off on the wrong foot and end up wasting a lot of time putting together documentation that doesn't meet the standard and doesn't create improvement for their organization. Watch for that webinar, How to Conduct an Effective Risk Assessment. Right now, I want to just jump to the end. Let's look to the end. Begin with the end in mind, they say. When you've done a good risk assessment, what does that look like, and what does that do for your organization? At Matterform, we see a risk assessment as having three primary goals. There are three things your risk assessment should do for you. There are three value propositions you should get out of a good, effective risk assessment. The first thing your risk assessment needs to do is it needs to document all of the good stuff that you're already doing. It needs to document all of the security controls, all of the IT systems, the policies and procedures, the training, all of the stuff that you're already doing right. Remember, a risk assessment is the first document that an investigator would ask to see. So I say, lead with your strengths. I want you to take credit for every password, every padlock, every policy that you have in place already to protect patient data at your organization. The bulk of your risk assessment should probably be focused on documenting those things. First goal of your risk assessment, document the good stuff. Next thing you want to do is look for gaps. There's always room for improvement. No matter how mature your risk management program is, there's always more that you can do. So look for those areas where you haven't quite met the standard. Remember, don't go for heroic measures. Look for where you haven't quite met that standard of reasonable and appropriate controls. And then don't just find things to do, find things to do next. The second goal of your risk assessment is to prioritize what you're going to work on next, to prioritize the next things that are going to make the biggest impact at the lowest cost for your organization. How can you make improvements quickly and cost effectively? Prioritize what you're going to do next. And then the flip side of that, well, that's your third goal. Once you've prioritized what you're going to do next, the third thing your risk assessment should do is justify what you're not going to do next, maybe what you're not going to do ever. It's very common to find dozens of things that you could do at your practice, dozens of things that might be a good best practice, something that your IT department might want to do, something that HIPAA might talk about. But when you look at it, you realize that this control in your environment doesn't make sense, either because it's too expensive and it just doesn't make sense. It wouldn't be reasonable and appropriate to implement it, or because it's addressing a risk that's already very well managed by other controls that you have in place at your organization. So the third goal for your risk assessment is to justify the things that you're not going to be working on right now, things that maybe you're not ever going to get to. So 3 goals for a good, effective risk assessment at your organization: document the good stuff, prioritize the next stuff, and justify the not now stuff and even the not ever stuff. So to learn more about how to do this, how to make a risk assessment that meets these goals, that delivers these values for your organization, sign up for that webinar. Look for the link in this post. It's a free 1-hour webinar. Come with your notebook and come with your questions to learn how to conduct an effective HIPAA risk assessment, a risk assessment that meets your compliance obligations, but more importantly, a risk assessment that's going to drive business value for your company. I'm Michael at Matterform. I hope to see you at that webinar and hope to see you here every week for more HIPAA for Humans. Thanks for watching.